Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Planning Commission meeting of Friday, May the 16th. It is now 3:01 p.m., and I want to welcome everybody. We'll do a Pledge of Allegiance to get started. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. A roll call. Michael Anderson to my left.
Present.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me? I cannot hear anything.
All right. Sage, you want to check sound?
Oh, now it came.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for
Thank you.
raising that. Okay. Did you hear the Pledge of Allegiance?
No, but I watched you and I read myself.
All right. Michel Brogard on video link, present. Thank you. Christian Pico, your chair. Ginny Strulas by video link. Is Jeannie there? Yes. Can you hear us?
She's here. She needs to join.
She's joined?
Can you put it on the other screen stage as well?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Thanks.
I can't see. Is that her on the lower right?
No, I guess that's.
She's hasn't joined yet.
Yeah, tell Jeannie to press accept.
Jeannie, if you can hear, press accept, or maybe I'll text her. All right, bear with me one second. Jeannie, where is she? Press accept on Zoom. All right, and Jake to my right, present. All right, thank you. I was hoping for Jeannie to come to make a motion to approve the minutes from the March 16th meeting, but she's not on.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Terrific.
I was here the whole time. I could see you guys, but you couldn't see me.
No, great. So I would like to, could you make a motion to approve the minutes for the March 16 Planning Commission meeting?
I'm making a motion to approve the minutes from the March 6th Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And just for information for both ourselves and the public, we're now sending these minutes to the Board of Trustees to make sure that all the board members actually know what's going on the Planning Commission, since there was some discussions that they were not all following what the Planning Commission was doing. So now all the trustees are receiving these minutes. Let me move on to the Public Safety Wireless Tower Land Use Board updates. Before I hand it over to Michelle and Alex in terms of where we are in the Land Use Board process, I just wanted to share, since there were a lot of discussions on the Diamond Project in this room over the last couple of weeks, a few comments. What we're really trying to do here is solving for a public safety issue, which will have a corollary benefit to solve for what I like to call a public nuisance issue, which is cell reception. Really, the public nuisance issue, we know the cell reception is terrible in the village. It is even worse in the summer. And we also know that all the cellular propagation we have is at the hospital and from the Mariner Drive industrial complex. As far as the public safety issue, the most important one, I think we need to understand that residents may not be able to reach 911 in case of an emergency, and the 911 staff may be unable to locate the caller. For the first responders, they use really, in essence, three tools to respond to an emergency, which is the LMR, which is a land mobile radio pagers. And they also use internet connection for their onboard computers, like the Red NMX that the fire department uses. And finally, they'll use their cell phones. So we're not just solving, so the one issue we're trying to solve for, as I said, for public safety, is one of the three components that our first responders use. So let me just say, obviously, communication is paramount for first responders to respond in a timely manner, and it's really there to save lives. It's also there to promote their own safety of our first responders. And no one would like a resident or first responder to die as a result of poor communication. That's really what we're there to do. And I understand in this room we had some residents who didn't want this in their backyard. Certainly understand. And addressing their concern about, let's call it visual pollution, is perfectly understandable. But they also need to think about the risk of either losing a loved one or community residents or a first responder when they say that. So I will say now, we had tried this. This is going to be the third time over the last 25 years to get this project done. And what's different now is key. Technology has improved, and the visual impact are far better than they would have been if we had done this the first time around 20 years ago. Diamond was selected through an RFP process, and they're probably one of the best nationally firm to work with. They've been great partners to date. And look, population density has increased. Traffic is not the only issue. That's another issue in terms of our cellular coverage for our first responders and our residents. And we chose a better location. It's downtown. It's outside the historical district. It has an optimal propagation map over that covers the entire village. So this Planning Commission has been working on this topic for the last 2 years, and we now have good public input and public hearings. Two things, two important questions were raised by the public, which I think are interesting to address here. Why not install nodes instead? And certainly the point here is that many are needed if we were to go down that route. In fact, Crown Castle, whom we spoke with earlier this week, and we've spoken to them in the past, proposed 21 locations. And if you want a node in front of your house, you need to remember that if you have 3 carriers, the cans are rather large. So, you know, it's not going to be 4 or 5 people coming into a public hearing who are going to complain. It's going to be probably the whole village in this little room. I will also say that it doesn't solve for the issue of Motorola antennas and where they go if you go through a node solution. And these Motorola antenna whips need to be above the tree canopy at least 100, 120 feet over. The other question a resident raised, which we'll address, is why not use Starlink connectivity? And this is the question of using satellite connectivity versus land-based. And there's several issues. Obviously, the latency would be poor in a moving vehicle. It doesn't solve for what I said earlier, the LMR, which is the land mobile radio issue and the connection. And it won't work where there are trees and canopies. You need a clear sight of the sky. And if a first responder is in a building, that doesn't work. So those are important facts. We were asked by the zoning board last week, I think it was last week. No, it was this week. They had a meeting in this room to have the Planning Commission issue a clear memo about satellite versus terrestrial communication, Starlink versus a cell tower as an alternative. So we have here a 6-page memo, which the Planning Commission members have received today. This is a final memo that has been written by ourselves and reviewed by the Chief Technology Officer of Diamond in terms of its integrity. It's now complete, ready to be submitted to the Planning Board, the Zoning Board, and the ARB. Dated today. What I'd like to do is make sure that the Planning Commission members have looked at it, if they have any questions or comments before we release it. And we'll give it to Alex, who also has a copy on his inbox of the final document, to, once we have comments, if any, by the Planning Commission member, to circulate it to the Zoning Board. I'm not sure what the deadline is for that submission. Alex, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. So we would make it available to the zoning board as soon as we receive it for a Thursday meeting, which I think is their next meeting. We typically stop taking submissions at noon on a Tuesday prior.
So the next meeting is June 2nd, right? Something like that?
No, I
No.
think it's the, let me just confirm the date here while I have this open. June 10th.
June 10th, okay.
For the
So
zoning
we
board
effectively
reviews.
have until the end of June, I mean, the end of May to have the rest of you on the planning commission review this memo and ask any questions that you may have. So, but for now, we'll just we'll shelve it until, we'll give it a few days for members of this commission to look at it and have any comments. But it's there, it's finished, and it's 6-page, pretty complete, arguing why Starlink is not a replacement of a cell tower. I want to be clear, Starlink performs best at fixed locations and requires a stationary dish to operate properly. You can have it on a mobile vehicle, but as I said earlier, latency won't be appropriate. An installation certainly wouldn't be feasible because of the LMR component in terms of public safety. So we go through this very clearly, why this is not an adequate replacement of a cell tower in public safety and Motorola communications integration through this memorandum to the land use boards and explaining in a lot of details from the commission why that is. But I would simply say that we appreciate the public comments and other ideas that the public may have as to how to solve for this issue that I was explaining earlier. And certainly, what's come up, why don't you do nodes? Why don't you do Starlink? Were all very good comments, and we appreciate that from the public. And I would encourage the public to come to these planning commission meetings and certainly express views on different topics. We have now moved the planning commission meeting to the third Friday of every month. We do it at 3 p.m. to accommodate those, and certainly hoping to have more input on these topics. So, Michelle or Alex, do you want to sort of give a sense for us and for our resident what the next steps are in terms of the land use boards? Michelle, do you want to?
Yes, I'm prepared to make a couple additional comments. The first one is we had a balloon test which lasted 4 hours. We had a big red 6 feet or 8 feet long balloon floating around at 125 feet high above the fire station on the 20th of April to give the public an idea of where the tower would be sited. And this was announced in the press, and we had a big sign on Lake Agawam to encourage the public to take a look at the balloon. We had a planning board meeting on May 5th, an ARB meeting on May 12th, a ZBA meeting on May 13. At each of these meetings, we had Diamond Communication make a presentation to the group and to the public. We had a few public comments, as you mentioned, Christian. And we have 3 meetings coming up on June 2nd with the planning board, on June 9 with the ARB, and on June 10 with the ZBA, where, again, Diamond Communications will be present to answer further questions. I'll make a couple more comments. As you know from previous meetings, Diamond Communications is fronting and bearing the cost of building the tower, which is probably between $500,000 and $1 million. So they pay for all of it, and then they write a check to the village of $500,000. And then once we have the carriers secure space on the tower, to AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, and maybe even Dish, these guys are going to pay $3,000 or $4,000 a month. So the village will receive 50% of the annual rent, let's say around $70,000 a year, with an escalator for 25 years. So these are the economics, but it gets better because the Motorola equipment, which is on the very top of the tower, and is there for free. So Diamond fronts, pays, and the first responders LMR, land mobile radio, Motorola equipment sits on top of the tower for free. I'll add one more thing, Christian. You said that the nodes alone cannot replace a total monopole. That's correct. However, with the exponential growth in demand for telecommunication, I wouldn't be surprised if, as is the case in most neighboring municipalities, we will have nodes one of these days. You need both to accommodate the traffic, the demand, the bandwidth, and the penetration. So eventually, like everybody else, like every municipality, we will have a total monopole, many of them. We will have nodes, we'll have small cells on top of buildings, and we'll even have cells inside of buildings as everything becomes connected over the next few years. These are my comments. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you for that. I want to ask a question for Alex. The planning board lead agency with SECRA has 30 days. And I'm not sure I understand from the time they met and made that decision, 30 days goes. They're meeting again on June 2nd. By June 2nd, will those 30 days have gone by? How does that work?
So the 30 days refers to at the time that other interested agencies have to establish lead agency to do a coordinated review. So they sent notification to all the other involved agencies, which involves the Board of Trustees, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Board of Architectural Review. The zoning board at the meeting agreed to allow the planning board to serve as lead agency. So that 30 days is really just to come to a consensus about who's going to be the lead agency for SECRA, and they've already come to that consensus.
Okay, that's
Yep.
helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, got it. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of what either one of us has said in terms of the land use process that's going on now?
No,
That
I
could be
think
helpful.
I think it was very comprehensive. The 3 public hearings are happening concurrently, and they remain open at the dates that were mentioned. So the board will continue to accept submissions. Each board asked for a little bit more information for their specific purview, particularly about how the facility would look at the ground level, a little bit more details about the retaining walls that are proposed. So they're all continuing to do their due diligence, and the village has consultants who are assisting the planning board and the zoning board in the technical details of that review.
Okay, it's helpful.
Sure.
Any other questions from our commission members?
Nope.
Nope,
Thank
all
you.
good? All right.
Thanks.
Thank you for all this. We'll move on to number 4 on the agenda, which is Southampton Village Partnership. Jeannie, if you could update us on that topic, that would be great.
Sure. So to remind everyone, we've met a couple of times, and we finally finalized the mission statement, or who we are. It's the SVP, as we're calling ourselves, is a volunteer organization driven by passionate residents and local businesses who've come together to promote how special our village of all seasons is and to give back to the local community. We've hit a couple of glitches in terms of just funding, and at this point the goal is to work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce and come up with creative ways to move forward, because there's a lot to accomplish and we just need to one step forward. So that's really where we are, and hopefully we'll get the group back together shortly.
Okay. Jeannie, thank you for all the efforts you're doing with that. I know it's really a challenging, a big effort to herd all these cats around this topic, which is in the essence of it, trying to bulk up the shoulder seasons for the businesses and bringing life to our Sag Harbor competitor within the streets of Southampton. And I know you've done a great job, herding all these cats. So we really want to thank you for that, and looking forward to hearing more about how this is going to go with the Chamber of Commerce.
All right, thank you. Hopefully.
Staying with you, you were kind to accept the role of Southampton liaison. You and I have spent time about what needs to be done. Can you update us in terms of how you plan to do this and the master plan that the town is hoping to work on?
Sure. So I was just informed last week that the master plan is still in process. They have not yet hired a consultant to launch it. but when they do, they would like the village to participate. So that's a TBD, but it's great because I think from a communication standpoint, it can only be a positive. In the interim, I'll be monitoring the agendas to make sure that if there's any items that I think will affect the village, to raise it and red flag it with the appropriate folks. So that's really the brunt of it.
Jeannie, that'll be great. I think that's wonderful because, we've had many instances in the past where we were the last one to know about it, and one needs to be proactive as opposed to reactive, so thank you. It is now time probably to move on to a new infrastructure project that we're working on. Actually, I'm sorry, no, it isn't. Item number 7. Suffolk County Deer Management Program from Michael Anderson to bring us an update since I guess the season's over now, right?
Exactly. I was going to make that announcement today. Hunting season is now officially over for the year. Our tally was 114 deer year to date. From what I understand, Public Works, we have Steve in the meeting today, picked up at least 40 dead deer on the side of the road due to accidents, car accidents. So with that number, our number, and even private hunters in the village, I'd say our number easily could be about 175 deer this year. So I think we did well. Still have an issue with the DEC and the permits ongoing. We've been working closely with them, but they do just take a long time to issue a permit to us. But we're at them and we're still working with them, and hopefully, the mayor and trustees do not want any more deer hunting anyway because the village is so populated, so we're going to stop. But we still will be in communication with the DEC for those permits. That's all I have on Suffolk County Deer Management.
Can I ask you a question? 175 on the numerator, what do you think the denominator is? What is the population size? What do we have per square miles in terms of deer density in your estimates?
I don't have that right now. Michael Testori from Suffolk County Deer Management does have that information, and I can reach out to him and get it. I know he did an initial report to the trustees and the mayor to tell us what he thought the population of deer was before we even started the program. By the way, this is the second year we've had it. So I can certainly get that back to you and give it to you.
Okay, except, I was under the understanding that we were over 100 per square miles, so village-wide it would be 650 or more. So 175 out of 650 is a really good number. And it's just a question of, are we just dealing with the new population, or are we actually taking a dent on the overall population from for longer term?
I would say it's not the new population. I think we're making a big dent in the overall population.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that we keep this program in place, not just this coming year, but years after, because they do just repopulate, and if we don't have a program in place to do anything about it, it'll be the same situation we had 2 or 3 years ago with deer just running all over the place. So, Len, I'll ask you to carry that torch for us at the next meeting, next year sometime. I want to talk about the trees, the village trees. We had a great meeting yesterday. First, I want to speak about the Arbor Day celebration that we had. We are Tree City, USA, and one of the criteria to belong to that program is that we have an Arbor Day celebration, and which we did have. We had the people in attendance were Mayor Manger, Trustee Zanatti. We had Public Works, Steve Phillips and John Flack. We had tree committee members, Gina Aresta and Peter Grealish, in attendance. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. But I just wanted to stress that there was a donation, of $1,000 given by a village resident to the village for a larger tree for us to plant. which we used for our celebration. The tree was planted right in front of the Catholic school on West Main Street. Sister Kathy was there with over 50 students in attendance, which was really nice because the school was on vacation that week, but she was able to bring at least 50 kids in school uniform to the event. So it was very nice. The kids sang the Star Spangled Banner. There were speeches made by the students concerning Arbor Day and what it means to them. And it was a nice event, very good event. I move on with recent discussions we've had at the tree committee meeting. They're starting to be very proactive now. One of them, John Fleck, brought up that the tree next year that we possibly will have to remove is a tree in Agawam Park. What kind of tree was it again, Steve?
Bradford pear.
Yeah, Bradford pear that's up there now, that's splitting and is going to come down sooner or later. So we pretty much designated that as our next tree to come down, to plant. We spoke about Wyandanch Lane, Linden Plain trees. People, the residents along there would like us to continue planting those trees. So we spoke about that. We also, Christian, you'll be happy to hear, because the Planning Commission has discussed in the past the concept of, I want to say, a tree garden, where we buy smaller trees and we possibly plant them on village properties and let them grow. I know you and I discussed this 2 or 3 years ago. So it was brought up by another member, Peter Grealish, actually. So we might, and the mayor was there, so that might happen. Let's see, what else? Okay. So Steve Phillips from Public Works was kind enough, and I'm very happy to see this. He worked on what he's calling the Village of Southampton Street Management Plan. And I want to distribute this to everybody. It's a rough draft.
Can you send it also by digital version to the rest of our members who are by Zoom, since they can't see that,
Sure.
later? That'd be great.
If I can manage that, I certainly will.
I'll help you if you need it.
It's a great rough draft. Steve's looking for contribution from the tree committee to speak of it or go over it and see if there's any recommendations that we might have. And he's very open to anything that we might bring to the table. So I'm asking our planning commission, because we did start this 2 or 3 years ago, to look this over, see what's important to them, and make comments also, and I'll forward over to Steve.
Well, I will say this, give us time to read this and think about it and provide some input
Right.
to you. I'll simply make one observation, which I've made before. I was entrusted once to make a speech, I think, at the first public tree, whatever, Arbor Day thing, and one comment I made, which our Department of Public Works, who was there, chuckled at, and I'll make it again, is that it's terrific that we're planting trees in front of our Catholic church in the village, but I'm sure the Presbyterian people would love to have proper trees as opposed to 2 Charlie Browns in front of their church. So I'll just leave it at that.
That's all I hear. We will
this
leave
is
it
great.
at that. I'll leave it at that, and with that, I'll say goodnight, and it was a great meeting yesterday. And Len, good job. Thank you.
Okay, this is terrific. We'll look at it. Okay, it is now 3:30, 3:31. Let's move on to the next really relevant infrastructure project in the village. And this will be presented by Suffolk County Water Authority. But Jake, do you want to say a few words before we get started?
We've had a very productive dialogue with Suffolk County Water Authority since late last year to collaborate on creating a sustainable additional water capacity for matter of public safety to add about 2 million gallon storage capacity, and we're thankful to have the chief engineer present today, Tim Kilcommons. Thank you, Tim. A design rendering has been made, which I will defer to Tim, on our village property in North Magi. So with that, Tim, you're most welcome to come to the podium. You can
Or you
set
sit-
your display here for the camera.
You can speak through this mic if you want to sit, and if you put it there, the camera, this camera here,
And
will
then
come
you-
down on the
yeah.
plan.
Okay.
And so the public, and all of us, can actually see the rendering.
Is that good?
Sage, does that work?
Works.
Okay, good man.
Okay, thank you for having us. As Jacob said, my name is Tim Kilcommons, Chief Engineer for the Water Authority. The engineering department at the Water Authority is tasked with the design, procurement, and construction of all of our water supply infrastructure needs. So that's everything from the wells and pump stations to treatment systems to storage tanks. And as the village knows, we struggle in the village during peak times, mostly due to irrigation. And our tank at West Prospect drops to dangerously low levels. And it's such a concern for the Water Authority that there have been times in the past where we've dispatched people to actually close the valve of the tank to make sure that we had adequate water in reserve, that God forbid there was a fire that was needed by your fire department. So one way of doing this, and I'm glad you used the word sustainable, because one way to do this would be to simply sink more wells somewhere and tap the aquifer for more water for that instantaneous peak. The better way to do it, in our view, is to have these ground storage tanks where you can pump your existing wells at off-peak hours, so you're sipping lighter from more sources throughout the system, because we don't just fill from one pump station. So this tank site, the proposed tank site, is close to our North McGee well site, but it wouldn't be drawing the water from there necessarily to fill it. We can fill from our system, so all the pump stations in the area can contribute to it. And then at peak times, we have booster pumps that would pump out of that ground storage tank and into the system to support your supply. So what we're looking at doing is looking at fitting an entire tank, the 2 million gallon tank, along with some treatment. There's an iron removal system. We use that term as a generic. It's actually going to be treating manganese from a well at North McGee. So there's an iron removal system there, and as well there's the booster pumps I talked about for boosting that water out of the tank. We can do all that with a net clearing of about 1.65 acres total. The initial clearing will be slightly larger than that because the type of tank that we do is it's a concrete tank. It's technically precast, but it's cast right there at the site. So they cast panels and then they use a crane to lift those in place. The tank would be no more than 30 feet tall from grade, and it would be approximately 133 foot in diameter. In order to get the required volume, we would have to go down about 10 feet into the ground. So instead of going up and making it to where maybe it might be seen by people, we'll keep it at the 30 feet or below and have 10 feet below grade.
Is there any way you can go lower than the 10 feet?
There certainly, from an engineering perspective, there's a way to do that. It comes at great expense, and it also comes at a larger footprint because the walls would have to be thicker to kind of support those soil loads that are coming the deeper that you get. So this is kind of the best compromise that we've found. We've used this same design before out at Town Line Road in Wainscott, and I have some pictures of that I can show you as well of that site because it's going to be similar to that. We also have a 2 million gallon concrete tank at Laurel Lake in Laurel on the North Fork. So similar tank, they both worked very well for us.
So, let me ask actually the same question but differently. First of all, this redesign from our last meeting is all within village boundaries, right?
Yeah, so that brings up a couple of
Yeah,
issues that we're having, right? So at previous conversations, the village had expressed to us that the property lines were kind of
Yeah.
blurred between the
Site
the
survey
town
was
and
the
village,
question.
the survey. Yeah, so we sent our survey team, which consists of a professional surveyor, out to the site. They looked into it. There's reason for concern about where those lines actually are. We're fairly comfortable, but in order for us to move forward, we would go out and we would hire a private surveyor to go out, because often the private surveyors, especially in the locality that you're working in, have access to information that might not be publicly available. So they should be able to give us a definitive answer on that. So that would be one of the next steps that we would have to go through, is to totally confirm where those borders are.
Yeah.
We're comfortable that we can work a footprint into an area that we feel confident in, but we wouldn't want to enter into anything and then find out after
Yeah.
the fact that, we're encroaching on somebody else's property.
And Tim, this still gives us access to the pistol range, which was a concern of the mayor.
It does. I read the mayor's comments as maybe also being concerned about continuing on, and maybe Steve can speak to it.
Steve, yeah, if you want to come up to the mic, I think there were some issues where we want to be able to continue to go to the back of it.
Yeah, exactly, to the north of the property.
So, in this section here, is there a distance that you have to follow for your leaching tank?
No, and in fact, so what I can do, what I initially had written, maybe a little inartfully, was that we would have a pass-through, and we would continue your road through here, so you could just drive straight through and share the gates. The mayor seemed to indicate that he would prefer if you had unfettered access to your property, and I can do that. I'll push everything this way, and I'll reconfigure the road as it enters onto the village property. I'll reconfigure it to the outside of the perimeter, so you won't be part of my fenced area. You'll still be outside and be
And
able to
still
get right back
access-
around to your
Access
spot.
to this
Yes.
tower. Now, there's no way we can put this iron removal basin in this section, depending on where these property lines are.
No, I don't believe so, no. Because you want that pistol range.
No, I want the pistol range, but this is where we're making our topsoil. And if we can get it, then I just have to do it over here. So, but we would still want our access up to this tower area.
Mhm.
So it kind of has to like come over closer to the pistol range for
Yeah,
that
I
leaching.
need that basin close to both the tank and that
So there
iron
you have
removal
the
plant.
parameters.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me ask you this question about the diameter of the tank. So if you were to make it deeper, and I understand the cost, then maybe the circumference wouldn't be as large. I mean, could you reduce the circumference so that your footprint is actually slightly smaller to accommodate Steve's comments or requests?
Yeah, I think I might have misspoken before. So when I said when we go deeper, we might expand the diameter, that was incorrect. You're right. If we went deeper, we could theoretically
Yeah.
reduce the diameter of the tank, right?
Is that
But we're increasing the
technologically
thickness of the
possible?
wall.
Is that
It-
much more expensive?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm also thinking of the water table.
That
Even
could
though
be
we
an
have a high
issue.
topography here.
It could be an issue as
Yeah.
part of the design of the tank. Once we are committed to the project, we would do soil borings and check for things like that. But yeah,
But that's a good point, because that will shrink,
But
and we'll
yeah.
gain our access. Is that what you're shooting for, is 2 million?
yeah, we're shooting for 2 million.
There's
Because you only get one shot at building these things.
There's obviously an issue from the CapEx. They could allocate in their budget to do this project as a water authority, and obviously making this request, it might, it might cost them whatever, a couple of $100,000 more or more to do that. And
Yeah.
we may not get an agreement as a result. So,
And we had a rendering that was here at one point, correct?
but that was in the town.
Yes.
Yes.
Town.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's where that survey, when I saw the gentleman up there surveying, so that town line is in this area here, then, where your pipes are coming through? Because that's where my log pile starts. And those two white pillars out there is where the town line starts.
So there's a couple of parcels, right? So there's a parcel that
Yeah.
comes right through the pistol range,
Mhm.
right? Where it's town from here.
They're considering that
village
town.
From here, yes.
Okay,
And over here is county. Yeah.
didn't know that.
So and it brings up another issue, which would be if agreements are made about the use of the village parcel, the village is coming in across that driveway, which is in the town parcel. So normally you would have an ingress egress easement for
Right.
that and possibly a utility easement, because somebody ran power up towards that pistol range. But you may not. It may have been a gentleman's agreement, you know, and just something that's past practice, that we've seen that too in the past. But that would have to be worked out, because now we would need that same ingress egress permission or easement from the town.
Yeah,
in
because
order
I
to get
filed, I
through.
filed for a DEC permit to store leaves in this section, and they surveyed it, and it was village property. That's why I'm confused now. So
Okay.
that's, I can't lose that as a DPW aspect, because I need somewhere to put this. If
So
not,
it's-
it's gonna cost the village a
There's,
ton of money.
there could be a possibility that the village owns the driveway itself.
Right.
And that it's just the town on the side.
Okay.
There's some type of right-of-way there. We don't find any evidence of that, and again, that would be something we would task the local surveyor to do.
I think once we get the survey,
It'll settle a
show,
lot of
yeah.
issues, yeah. And the water authority would still require permissions from the town to come across from our North McGee property, because now we're separated. These aren't adjacent parcels. So I'd still need to be able to get across with my water main.
And to do that, what has to be done with the town? Is that goes through the planning board, or how does that work?
going through, trying to get easements to go through other properties, I don't know.
Yeah, we would approach the town and look
Alex,
for an
any
easement.
thoughts on the topic?
Going through different properties with a water main?
I can't speak to the town's process, but probably the town, if the town owns the property, then probably the town board would be involved.
The town planning board.
No, I mean, if it's town-owned property,
Town board
then probably
itself.
the town board itself.
Yeah, and the Water Authority's legal department has experience doing that and getting, we get easements both private and public all the time.
Yeah, okay. So that's not a big hurdle to jump.
No, not unless there's an objection to it. So,
So from what you heard, I mean, are you happy with that? Or?
It's fine, it's just, it has to get shrunk so we can access. The mayor, he just didn't want us in and out their gates of their property, basically, or their, whatever they come up with. That's a big basin, is that constantly full of water?
it's not constantly, but over time, there are times where it's holding water, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because like all these walking trails, there's a lot of kids, I know you haven't have a fence. but
Yeah, it'll be
I have it
fenced.
fenced around the pistol range, and
Yeah,
Doesn't
we have over 24 of these iron removal plants throughout the county, and they're for the most part they're utilized with these basins, and they're fenced, and we haven't had any issues.
okay. That's a large area. Yeah, that's what Bill's concern was, just to move this so we can still access, to tighten it up.
I could do that.
To tighten it up.
Yeah, I can do that, and I can use.
And then we can have this go around, right? Just to
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
clear in my-
I think
Just-
from the aerial, it looks like that the existing driveway is maybe like 15 to 18 feet wide, something like that. We were looking at, we can give you 20 feet without an issue.
Okay,
All right, that's,
so.
if that happens,
Okay, so what it sounds like, though, for this project to continue, is somebody's gonna have to foot the bill to get a proper survey. right?
Yes.
Am I getting this right?
Yes.
And you're gonna do that?
Yeah, my recommendation to my boss, Joe Picorni, who's our deputy CEO, is going to be for us to go out and get the survey and determine where these property boundaries are. And once we do that, and I can verify that my footprint is legitimate, that I'm not going to be running any risk to the Water Authority or to the village in placing this thing, then we can move forward.
Because the advantage of doing it this way is you're only dealing with one, you're only dealing with the village. The only town discussion is gonna be what, getting this permitting
Yeah, pipeline.
Yes.
pipelines, and that's an easy, hopefully an easy.
It should
an
be.
easy permission, so you're only dealing with one party in the transaction, if you will.
Right.
I mean, the other thing, so I think.
And there's
in
nothing
step one-
above ground in
Yeah.
any of the proposed town
Yeah.
encroachments.
You
So
have
I-
a main out by the school, out on McGee Street?
Yes.
You have a main, so that
We do.
you just hook into that.
That's what we attach to, exactly.
I mean, the other thing, certainly, we sort of skated around this a couple of times at our last meeting, is going to be the rental access to the land, to the village paid by the Suffolk County Water Authority. Just give me a sense, how do you deal with this in other communities in terms of how to figure out how to price that from a land use perspective? I mean, we know what it is for a tower. We got the economics.
Right.
Not quite sure what it is for, and I mean cell tower. I'm not quite sure what it is for something like this.
So the authority is pretty flexible about how we go about things. Our preference generally is to purchase land outright, which is what we
Okay.
normally do, or get an easement for it. And when they get an easement, what we do is we go out and we get an assessment, because we're a public agency also. We get an assessment, come to an agreement on what the value of that easement is, and then pay based on that.
Okay.
There are instances where there are leases, and those are negotiated in a similar fashion. There's an assessment done on what the value of that lease might be. And then the authority's legal team and our deputy CEO and CEO,
Yeah,
we get
yeah,
involved in
yeah,
negotiations.
So, and the lease would be based on what, like a cap rate, once you figure out what the, you sort of figure out, you know.
I don't
you
know,
put a
the lease-
4% cap rate. and
The
you
lease
run
is the
numbers?
least, is the least, the one that we do the
The
least of, yeah. As I said, we typically are purchasing property outright, or we're purchasing that easement right.
Got it, okay. Are there any questions? I see we have in the room our village administrator, a deputy mayor, listening to this. Are there any questions from you that take this opportunity to come and ask?
The question on the appraisal was the one I had, so thank you for asking.
Anything from Mr. Russell?
I would just offer a little bit of experience. I'd actually worked with the Water Authority at Southampton, and that profile in terms of the elevation, they have about a 10-foot elevation at Laurel. It's a very popular preserve, walking trails and everything. And that 10-foot profile is very, it blends in very quickly. That 10-foot isn't, although it looks like a huge structure, when you're looking at that 10-foot profile above ground, it's really not that noticeable. It's not imposing. So if that's something where they have to stick to down the road to maintain that volume and to maintain that source separation from the groundwater, I think it's something that you don't have to fear. Because in fact, I think you have photographs.
I do, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. This is the Laurel Lake tank that Mr. Russell is referring to. And you can see it really is minimal in terms of its exposure.
So
above
this
ground.
is 10 feet there.
Yeah,
top.
and the roof is domed, and
It's
that's
domed,
where,
right,
that's
got
where
it.
the rest
30
of the
feet,
elevation is coming in, yes.
Yeah.
But-
And the vent, and, excuse me, it also includes the vent.
Got it.
The 30 feet.
But I thought I heard 30 feet. 10 would be underground, 20 above. I heard something different.
That's correct, but that 20 above is including the dome, the cap, or roof of it,
Yeah.
plus,
So the
plus
30
the
then,
vent on
with the
it.
dome, yeah, and the vent.
So the proposal here is really something completely similar to what Mr. Russell was
Yeah,
referring to
the
before.
free wall, what we term the free wall height of the tank is 20 feet, so 10 feet below, 10 feet above.
Fairly noticeable. I mean, you can look at it from the photo.
Well, there's a ton of trees anyway
Yeah, and the
around
spot
there.
that they're putting it in is a
Yeah.
perfect spot for it. No one's, unless you're walking up there,
Yeah.
walking trails, no one's gonna see it.
And I'd be happy to show you, like I said, we have that one at Town Line in Waynescott, and we have the one in Laurel. I'd be happy to show you either one or both.
Yeah.
Well, it's great that our village trustee and deputy mayor is here. Len, what do you think? 2 million additional gallons for safety, public safety?
It's a win-win for the water authority and for the village, absolutely.
Thank you, Len.
Okay. Any other comments online from our commission members?
I have a question. I have two questions. The first one is, how did you get to 2 million gallon? Why not 1 million or 3 million? How that calculation works? And how much does the existing tank contain currently?
So the existing tank is on West Prospect Street. That's an elevated storage tank. That tank is a 1 million gallon tank.
And Michelle, as Tim had mentioned, at peak usage, it runs so low that they have to reduce capacity and the throughput on the valves. So it really puts the village and the residents in danger.
completely understand. So that 2 million gallon serves just a village or your whole network in the town of Southampton?
Yeah, so from a water supplier perspective, we don't think in terms of village, hamlet, or town borders. We think in terms of our pressure zones and distribution zones. So it feeds what we term our Southampton low zone, and that stretches all the way from West Hampton out to East Hampton, to parts of East Hampton. But in terms of hydraulics and practical aspects, yes, it has its most profound effect locally. So as pressures start to drop as a result of the West Prospect tank dropping its levels, this tank will be contributing. The pumps will kick on in response to pressure drops.
So most of the benefits would accrue to the village of Southampton.
Occurs, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, and my last question is, how much does a project like this cost? Is it $1 million and or two? I don't know. And how do you fund all this?
So a 2 million gallon tank would probably end up costing, on the capital side, approximately $3 million or so.
Mm-hmm.
And-
And that's borne by the SCWA authority?
Yes.
There's no cost to the village at all?
No, it's borne throughout SCWA's customer base. It's part of our annual budget.
And is that, I would say, already, I mean, do you have a CapEx in your capital budget? Do you have that money around? Or
Yes.
do you need to go seek authority from your members or not?
Yeah,
How does that work?
So the way the authority's budgeting process works is our board approves a budget every year. Our
Yeah.
budget year, our fiscal year starts June 1st.
Yeah.
And runs through May 31st. That board, they approve it in terms of budget line items, specific budget line items. So let's say for the sake of argument, for tank items, I ask and I receive approval for $7 million worth of tank
You can
projects.
do two of these jobs.
Right, so there's a couple of layers of approval. So the board is going into it knowing that they've approved, let's say, a total of $90 million for capital expenditures, $7 million of which would be towards tanks. And then when a specific tank project is identified, it goes through an additional process up through the CEO level, and the CEO signs off on that process. And then when the contract is bid, when this tank contract is bid, the board then approves that contract, the
Got
award
it.
of that contract.
That's helpful.
And Tim, if you get your approvals, let's say this summer, how long does it take to build it? Is it a year? Is it 2 years until it comes online?
Yeah, so if we have all the questions answered and all the Ts crossed and the Is dotted on the land issues, and we move forward, I'll be concurrently preparing specifications for a contract to go out to bid. And we'll say, for the sake of argument, we go out to bid and make an award in the fall of 2025. I would expect to be completed with construction by late fall of 2026.
So 1 year, 3 million. Okay, got it.
Approximately a year, yeah.
Helpful. So it sounds like the village has an interest, obviously, in continuing the process, and it's quite clear what needs to next be done is to confirm this site survey
Yeah.
and for you guys to get somebody to hone into this issue, which has been a challenge, I know, for the village, DPW, and others to get answers to this. So if you guys could do it, it'd be great.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from anyone? All right. Do you want
Tim?
to close this?
Tim, many thanks for the efforts, and we'll certainly work with you on the next steps with the more detailed survey.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to come out here. I'll leave these with you, and if anyone does want to take me up on the offer of visiting one of the tank sites, you have my email, I believe, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd like to go.
Just
Well, yeah,
contact
I'd like
me.
to get up there.
I
Yeah.
think, Mr. Anderson, I don't know if you're around, you can do it.
Yeah, well, definitely during the next planning commission meeting, maybe a day earlier or something.
Okay,
I
Sounds
live
good.
about 5 minutes away from the one in Laurel, so.
Oh, so you're going to buy drinks after the school
Yeah,
trip?
My brother owns a restaurant down the road, so we're covered all the way around.
There you go.
Awesome. We like.
Name the date.
Well, I think we've already circled it. It sounds like it's going to actually be, since our next commission meeting is on Friday the 13th, we're going to have an outing on Thursday, June 12th. Is that what we're aiming for?
Sounds good to me. I'm
Well, there you
back
go.
from Texas on the 11th, so that works.
Okay, so
Sounds
we have,
good.
we have a field trip on June the 12th. And meanwhile, between now and then, if you guys can sort of coalesce and figure out how you're going to do that survey, that'd be great.
Yeah, we will. We'll be in touch about it.
I just would like to make one little comment. We've been discussing this now for not too long, maybe, 6 months, 8 months? And when we were first approached by you guys, we were all sitting back saying, oh my God, what are you going to do, put up another water tower? And we all said, we don't want a water tower. And I think what you have proposed here is probably the best thing that, you could have done for the village residents as far as such minimal impact on village residents. And I think it's a great place and a great design. So I'm very happy that you guys came up with this solution.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you for saying this, because I knew what was in your mind for the last few months, and you shared it with me, so I'm very happy to hear what you just said. Thank you.
No, I think it's great. Good.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Tim, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next part of the agenda, public comments and discussion. I will, if I may, share with you some of my own comments and invite our Planning Commission member on the subject of the solar canopy and the parking. And I wanted to share with you the fact that I was asked as chair of the Planning Commission, and so was the chair of the Architectural Review Board, by the press, whether or not we were consulted on this on this project. And my response to the journalist Kaylin Riley was as follows, and this goes back to Tuesday, April 29. It was as follows: the solar canopy is an important infrastructure asset to a village committed to sustainability. The status quo bias is understandable, but our community will embrace this initiative with time. You can observe how these canopies are widely used and embraced in Europe as they become ubiquitous. The Johnson Controls program is widely used in many communities throughout our nation, including those where preservation of character is cardinal. And I also said I would encourage your journalistic curiosity to review their mission statement and achievements over decades. And I read the article she wrote, and she actually did that. So I want to thank Kaylin for certainly doing her work in terms of her journalistic curiosity, and she wrote a pretty good article, and I know that Joe Shaw, the editor, also wrote his own views on the topic. And I will simply also say that it is clearly in the purview of the Board of Trustees, working with Johnson Control, to have made this decision. Having delegated a review by the Planning Commission would have only delayed the project any further. And at the end of the day, if there was any agency to go to, it would have been the Planning Board. But at the end of the day, this board has been elected by the people to make decisions and have worked with the best in the nation, which is Johnson Control, and I certainly embrace what was done there. Any comments in terms of this solar array from the rest of our commission and their thoughts on it today in terms of the sites?
I think it's fantastic. Just my own engineering curiosity is, what's the capacity per panel? Is it 400 watts, 450 watts, and how much total power it can generate? It just, I think, first of all, this is used around the country, and not just from Texas, where I also live. It makes perfect sense to have dual use, cover cars, and generate sustainable energy. So I was very happy to see it actually today.
Michael, any comments?
Actually, no. I don't have any comments on this particular subject. I'm not as well-versed with it as most of everybody here happens to be. I do know Johnson Controls is an extremely good company. that the village chose to work with. And, you know, other than that, no, I really don't have any other.
Jeannie, do you have any observations? Did you go see it?
I did, and I think that it's the wave of the future, so I didn't have a problem with it.
Thank you. Michelle, do you have any comments on it?
Yeah, I have a comment. I spend a lot of time in Europe, and I can't think of parking lots without it. It's almost mandatory now that parking lots are covered with these solar panels.
Terrific. Thank you, Michelle. I certainly would agree with you. The first place a driver is going to put his car in the summer is going to be under one of these so that the car is safely in the shade. So yes, well understood. Thank you for that. And I will say, look, the same trustee who said to me, "Gee, I didn't know you guys on the Planning Commission were working on a tree legislation," also struck me when the comments were made recently that after being on the board of trustees for the past year, didn't understand why this was there, and I'm just floored by this, and that's all I'll say. Moving on, the other subject that I thought to talk about is youth in Southampton. Trustee Brown is mission with both our youth and our seniors, and has been working with Superintendent of the school, Dr. Morell. I was also asked by Trustee Stevenson for the Planning Commission to have some thoughts on the topic, and I am having a gathering with the responsible person for the Teens Department in the library, along with the head of the SYA, the Southampton Youth Association, Mrs. Dozier, as well as Nick Epley, who is the assistant principal of the Southampton Intermediate School. So we're going to meet in a week or two and have all three of them together with us to think about what it is that the village can either coordinate or contribute for our youth outside the school hours, and come up with ideas. What struck me, seems pretty obvious, that the library teens department, the school superintendent for the intermediate school, and the SYA would know each other, but this is going to be the first time some of them are meeting. So I'm delighted to organize that, and we'll see what we come up with. So this is some of the projects outside infrastructure that the Planning Commission is working on, and I wanted to share that with you. Are there any comments from the public at this point by Zoom? I'd like to invite those before we adjourn. There are no one. Okay. Well, I certainly hope that the public will be listening to this meeting through YouTube as it's posted, and we look forward to participation from the Commission and the public at our next meeting, which is scheduled to June 13th at 3 p.m. I know Jake, to encourage the public, is going to make it even more interesting by providing, I think, food and non-alcoholic beverages to entice residents to come in this room and debate issues with us, have different views. We want to hear from the communities and get their input on topics, not only that we discuss, but that they think might be relevant. So with that, I will...
Christian?
Yes.
Before you close, I would like to thank and congratulate our audio video man, Sage, because the magic mics that you three are using are incredibly crisp. It's incredibly easy to listen to. And the way Sage is moving around the cameras is just phenomenal. And I would like to encourage the Commission to please consider an investment for the lousy microphones on the dais, which don't work, which are a disgrace. And when anybody, which is everybody except the mayor maybe, is more than an inch away from the mic, it's like there is no mic. So, thank you, Sage, for these new microphones, and please, let's invest in the same ones on the dais. Thank you.
Sage, thanks you for your comment. He's very appreciative. And with this, I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting, and looking forward to meet everyone in this room Friday, June 13th at 3 p.m.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.